What's up, Duval? It's your favorite former Jag, Bucky Brooks, and I am here to host Believe in Jaguars, a podcast dedicated to all things Jaguars. And I got to say, man, I'm really excited in how far we've come in a few weeks. Love to see the numbers growing in terms of the subscribers. So make sure that you tell a friend to tune in because the podcast is only going to get bigger and better as we can continue to go through it. We continue to talk about all things Jags. We can bring people on who know the Jaguars. And maybe every now and then we get a player or a former player to talk about the state of the team. So I'm looking forward to growing this podcast, to being a bigger part of the Jaguars community. So y'all help me grow this out as we continue to become a team. And we shout out Duvals on occasion. So this week, what I want to do, this will be a two-part series. But what I want to do is kind of lean on what we used to do when I worked for teams. When I was a scout in a team, we always talked about in the off season, there are a handful of players that really can determine whether our team can go from good to great. And what I want to do is I want to have two separate podcasts, one that focuses on defense, another one that focuses on offense, but three key players that will determine whether the Jaguars are able to make that jump from good to great in 2024. Now, what I want everyone to understand, in most situations for most teams, it takes about 2 to 3 years for evaluators to determine whether a guy can play and play at a high level or not. Sometimes it may take a little longer, and a lot of times you'll give grace to those guys that were top picks to maybe meet that ceiling to realize their potential down the line. And so the three guys that I'm going to talk about are guys that were drafted high, guys that were expected to be key players for the Jaguars since they've came on board. And now it's time for these guys to make that jump to help this team go to the next level. Now, let me preface this. I think the best thing that happened to each of these three guys is the new scheme that is going to be laid out this year by Ryan Nielsen and his defensive staff. I think Ryan Nielsen comes over with a scheme that really fits the personnel that was in place. Ryan Nielsen wants to be a guy that really attacks defenses, attacks offenses. He wants to play press coverage on the outside, whether it's man or zone. That will be something that changes by down and by situation and circumstance. But he wants to play a two-shell coverage. He wants to take away the easy layups on the outside. And then he wants to be able to run games and stunts on the inside to really disrupt the timing of the passing game while containing and controlling the running game. He wants to keep it fairly simple so guys can play fast, play free, run to the ball, knock the ball out, all of those things that allow athletes to play at their fastest and also to play at their most aggressive because they know exactly what to do. They know how to do it. And now it's just about effort and execution. And when you get the defense to that point, that's when the turnovers come in bunches. And that's when it's a lot of fun to watch this style of defense play. So the first guy that I want to bring up is someone who, look, I'll say this. I feel like he hasn't necessarily been put in the best situation to thrive since he was a first-round pick a couple seasons ago, and that's Devin Lloyd. Devin Lloyd was a first-round pick, 27th overall pick, 2022. He's a guy who came from Utah with a great reputation for creating big plays. Watching him at Utah, this was a guy that was all over the field and really in scouting terms, we talk about he was a stat stuffer, meaning he compiled a bunch of different splash plays in a variety of ways. He would get sacks, he would get tackles for loss, interceptions, forced fumbles. All of those things were a big part of his calling card, and it was one of the reasons why a lot of people had him pegged as a top 15 pick in the draft. He falls for whatever reason. The Jaguars take him at 27. He comes on board. But then they ask him to do something that he hadn't really done throughout his time in college. So he's playing off-ball linebacker, playing like a traditional will linebacker where he's off the ball, he's reading and reacting to guards, he's making plays all over. He's expected to make plays all over. What I would tell you is it's a much different position than the one that he played at Utah. At Utah, he played at the line of scrimmage. He made most of his plays going forward, attacking the quarterback, getting after the passer, and creating chaos on the edges. The good news for Devin Lloyd is he is going to be back in a role that asks him to do things that are very similar to the way that he was used in Utah. So the Jaguars have plans to put Devin Lloyd at what they call the Sam linebacker. Sam linebacker is the strong side linebacker. The Sam linebacker in against base offenses will have the opportunity to come to the line of scrimmage and really line up over top of the tight end. There'll be other instances where the Sam linebacker will be on the line of scrimmage and he'll go hunt the quarterback and do all the fun things that Sam linebackers are able to do. Devin Lloyd gets a chance to play in that role. And the good thing about Devin Lloyd is when Devin Lloyd was at Utah, Devin Lloyd led the Pac-12 in sacks. He had 8 sacks his final season, had 4 interceptions also that same season, which is one of the reasons why people are really excited about his potential at the next level. Well, now you're putting him in a role that you evaluated him in. That's what he did. He played at the line of scrimmage in Utah, and you're going to give him an opportunity to get back to doing what he really did really well throughout his time with the Utes. That's attack the quarterback, play with instincts, create chaos at the line of scrimmage, eliminate some of the thinking that comes along with playing off-ball linebacker and allowing him to play with his natural instincts. Of course, on passing downs, you have to figure out how do you want to play him. Does that mean that, hey, he goes off the ball and plays as a blitzing linebacker? Does that mean that maybe he stays on the line of scrimmage and maybe he puts his hand down, you kick Trayvon Walker inside and Eric Armstead is inside, and then on the other side you have Josh Allen? What you potentially have in Devin Lloyd is, I would say, an X factor to the pass rush. There were a lot of concerns or questions like after the draft, like why didn't they go and get a pass rusher early? You have Trayvon Walker and then and Josh Allen. Those are your 2 guys, but man, you can't just depend on those guys to do all the pass rushing. They didn't take a pass rusher until late. Miles Cole's come over from Texas Tech, but it's hard to count on a 7th round pick to make an immediate splash as a pass rusher. To me, it signals the team has big plans for Devin Lloyd. They have big plans for him to be a huge part of the pass rush package, and moving him to Sam linebacker, which is, I say this, his natural position, should allow him to come off the edge, to create chaos, and to be the disruptive player that everyone saw at Utah. Now, it won't necessarily marry up exactly to how he played at Utah, but man, it is a lot similar to the way that he played at Utah, more so than the way that he'd been used the first 2 years. And that's not a knock or shade to the previous staff and the way that he was used in Mike Caldwell's system, just a completely different system. And he was asked to do things that probably weren't the strengths of his game. If Devin Lloyd is given an opportunity to play the way that he played and the way that he played as a collegian, I think you'll see this guy really kind of tap into some of the things that made him special. He is a guy that he needs to improve and play like at a blue chip level, because if he plays at a blue chip level, it allows this front to really get after it and allows this defense to create the kind of chaos that is needed to be able to excel in a conference that is loaded with quarterbacks and in a division that is also loaded with young quarterbacks. Devin Lloyd is probably the biggest key player that the Jaguars need to unlock to help this defense get going. So when we think about building the team, obviously I gave you a front end player who has to play well, and Devin Lloyd certainly has to be that player. But it goes beyond the pass rush, because a lot of it is made about the pass rush. If you knock the quarterback down, you knock the quarterback around, it changes the way the opposing offense operates. Well, the other way that you disrupt the quarterback is by having great coverage. So the next guy is Tyson Campbell. Tyson Campbell, entering his 4th year, entering a contract year. He is a guy that is look, it's a make or break year for him in terms of what does his future look like for the Jaguars. Not necessarily like, oh, he can't stay around, but is this going to be a franchise caliber player, a blue chip caliber player that can be the shutdown corner that every defense wants on the island? Here's what I like about Tyson Campbell and what I liked about him when he came out of Georgia. 6'1", 193 pounds, ran into 4.3s when he was coming out. You see the explosive athlete that he is, 34-inch vertical, 10.4 broad jump when he was coming out. That athleticism shows up when you watch him as a pro. During his time with the Jaguars, you can't knock his explosiveness, his athleticism, his ability to kind of challenge people and really shrink the strike zone on the perimeter. Look, 3 years with the Jags, he has 30 PBUs. He has 6 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 fumble recoveries. So you like the production on the perimeter. The thing that I would tell you in watching him each and every week, oh, there's so much more that he could do. Um, some of it is obviously on him, man. Some of it is on like how he is utilized in the system. Well, once again, the number one thing in evaluation when it comes to players and whether they succeed or fail at the National Football League, a lot of it is fit in scheme. How well do their talents fit within the scheme that they're asked to play in? Now we are seeing Tyson Campbell. He will be asked to play in a scheme that fits his skill set. So when you look at Tyson Campbell, and people have talked about his ball skills, and he can't find the ball and those things. What I would tell you is when you're a tall, rangy athlete like Tyson Campbell, a guy who played in a defense at Georgia that really asked him to go nose to nose, challenge receivers, play a lot of bump and run, and to snuff out the layups and gimmies at the line of scrimmage, you're always going to have more breakups than interceptions. And part of the reason that is true is because your back is always to the quarterback as opposed to your eyes being looking at the quarterback when you're playing zone. So in man-to-man, when you're looking at Tyson Campbell, never expect him to be a guy that is a high interception guy. His value comes in the number of breakups and knockdowns that he has because he's in tight coverage. He reacts late and he knocks the ball out of the wide receiver's hands or he swats it away before he gets to him. Those are the things that should be reasonable expectations for Tyson Campbell. If he is a good player, he'll register a bunch of PBUs and guys will have a low completion percentage when they target his area. If he is a great player, then it becomes we don't want to try him on that side of the field because he tilts the field in the defense's favor so much that it's not even worth our time and our energy and effort. When I look at Tyson Campbell, I am a firm believer that Tyson Campbell can be an upper echelon corner. Tyson Campbell can be in a conversation as one of the elite corners in the league with an asterisk. That asterisk is an elite man-to-man corner, not an elite takeaway player, but an elite man-to-man corner, meaning his value, he should be judged on completion percentage allowed, passer rating allowed, and number of pass breakups he totals at the end of the season. A guy who is more of a turnover magnet would be like a guy like a Trayvon Diggs, where Trayvon Diggs may have like 8 to 10 interceptions, but as many plays as he makes, he also surrenders. And it's not a bad thing, but Trayvon Diggs is a guy who needs to see the ball come out the quarterback's hands because he is a ball swiper. He is looking to get interceptions. He's looking to take the ball away. So he is going to make, I would say, educated guesses to make plays on the ball. And that's great, but that defense has to be set up for him to set traps to make those plays. This defense is one that is more of hey, I'm going to need you to lock your man down. Even when we're in man and zone, we need to be snug to the receiver and we need to shrink the windows that are available to the quarterback. When I think about Tyson Campbell, I think that's a perfect fit for him because his ball skills, I would say, would probably rate at an average, adequate level. I can't say that he is a guy that is an interception magnet, but I will say if the ball is in his area, he can catch it. Where he's better at is, Tyson, you go get this guy, you play this guy, you challenge this guy, you make it difficult for him to catch passes, and we'll be okay. You may give up a play or two, but it's fine because we want you to be competitive. We want you to display your mental toughness, to line up nose to nose, down to down, and make life miserable for this wide receiver. In the National Football League, when you think about wide receivers, the wide receivers have all the advantages because they only can get bumped within the first 5 yards. All of the pushing and jostling that happens down the field, it all goes to the favor of the offense. So you're going to be on the wrong end of some plays that might be explosive, but we're willing to gamble that you're going to make far more plays than you give up. And so we're fine with you being a guy that is on the edge, on the line, challenging guys in man coverage. Here's why I believe Tyson Campbell's game will improve even more. And I keep saying this, and I want people to understand, yeah, I'm a bit of a homer, but I'm a homer because I've known this guy. I've seen this guy work. I was part of a staff that drafted this guy when he came in, and that's Chris Richard. I was in Seattle when we drafted him in the 3rd round. I watched him play. Then I watched him also transition to being a really, really good coach. First in college, then being a position coach in Seattle, and then kind of moving up the ranks where he eventually called the defense and did more. Not only there, but then what he did in Dallas and being a co-defensive coordinator with Ryan Nielsen in New Orleans. I've watched all his work. And watching his work with corners has been impressive. And so when we think about Tyson Campbell And I think about Richard Sherman and Brandon Browner and Byron Maxwell, guys that Chris Richard worked with at Seattle. There's some traits there in terms of the way that they go about doing their business, in terms of nose to nose, long arms, athleticism there that can challenge people, that can pin them to the sideline and really make it very, very difficult for the quarterbacks to squeeze balls into like those tight areas. But I'm going to say Tyson Campbell most compares to Byron Jones, who Chris Richard worked with the Dallas Cowboys. If you don't remember, Byron Jones was kind of like a phenomenal athlete when he came out of UConn, goes to Dallas. I want to say he set the broad jump record, the Guinness Book of World Records, the broad jump, whatever he did at the combine, the vertical and the broad, like he set ridiculous numbers for that. And so he was, I would say, more athlete than player going to the league. Well, when he teams up with Chris Richard becomes like the passing game coordinator, secondary coach, and those things. Byron Jones becomes a Pro Bowl player, a second team All-Pro player, playing in a system that will be similar, but also utilizing the techniques and tactics that Chris Richard taught. So when I think about Tyson Campbell's athleticism and I think about what Byron Jones had, there are a lot of similarities to me between those two. And so that's why I have Tyson Campbell with an arrow pointing up in terms of how I expect him to play in this defense. And if Tyson Campbell just gives you not what I mentioned in Richard Sherman and Brandon Brown are guys that were Pro Bowl players, but if he just gives you what Byron Jones gives you, this defense becomes really good because now against the pass, you're able to do some different things if he is able to hold down his side, and then you can kind of trick up the other side to help the other corner or the nickel and do those things. So his improvement is critical to the development of this defense for this defense to go to the next level. The other guy that is critical to the performance of this defense this year, Andre Cisco. Andre Cisco, one of my favorite players when I watched him in the draft when he was coming out. Watching him at Syracuse, he was ACC Defensive Rookie of the Year when he had an opportunity to play right away as a freshman. Led the country, I think, in interceptions, had 7 as a freshman. Remarkable, ridiculous instincts, intangibles, awareness. Came back, followed up, had 5 interceptions, had an injury his last season, but still made his way to the draft. 3rd-round pick for the Jaguars. Was still kind of knocking the rust off, playing under Urban and those guys. Never really got a fair shake to get on the field and play. That started for 2 years. I would say the results have been solid, but they even leave you wanting even more. So, like, just talked about his production as a 2.5-year starter, or really a 2-year starter. So 161 tackles, a sack and a half, 3 forced fumbles, 7 interceptions, and he has a defensive score. When I look at Andre Cisco, I see a guy that is a high IQ, very instinctive ball hawk, a guy who understands how to play the quarterback, a guy who understands how to set traps and bait quarterbacks into making poor decisions, a guy who needs some freedom to go make those plays on what I call hunches or educated guesses, but he has to have the trust of his teammates to be able to go for it. In this league, when you play over time and you develop a chemistry and a connectivity with your teammates, there are times where the corner can look at the safety and say, hey, man, if they line up in this formation again, I'm going based on the tendencies and what we've done throughout film study. Andre Cisco strikes me as that type of player. He strikes me as a player that can take what he sees on the film room and play it out on the field. But he has to be in a system that grants him the freedom to be able to do those things based on hunches and educated guesses, being able to look at hash split and alignments and those things that suggest, hey, there's a high probability of this play and this route happening right now. Because of it, I'm going, hey, Wingy, back me up. Dewey, back me up. Tyson, you're on your own because they line up in this situation. I'm going and doing some of those things. Andre Cisco, to me, has the potential to be an all-pro player, an all-pro player as a ball hawk, as a swiper, as a guy that is a takeaway machine in the middle of the field. To do that, though, everybody has to be on the same page at all times. So last year, we talked about big plays happening and those things. Now, I'm on the field, on the sideline. I can't tell you exactly whose fault it is. I can just say that there were communication issues that led to free runners blowing past the defense. That could be someone just didn't know what to do. Someone didn't communicate what they were doing. or whatever. So the number one thing that I would say Andre Cisco has to make sure that he's on the same page with everybody. Everyone in the secondary is on the same page, knowing exactly what the coverage is, what the assignments are supposed to be, and what the alignments are. So everyone gets on the same page. Then through film study, then the communication begins to happen with everyone in the secondary on what are the probabilities based on what we see. Okay, they line up in this formation. When we watch the tape, they did this. High probability, high alert of X, Y, and Z in terms of the routes. Andre Cisco strikes me as someone who has that ability to be able to do it. But the key to him doing it is he has to earn the trust of his coaches that his preparation and his process is going to play out in terms of performance and production on game day. So the offseason program is really critical for him because he has to be on the same page with the defensive coordinator and the secondary coach in terms of how the coverages need to be played and what are the freedoms within those respective coverages. When you get that and you get on the same page, then you can begin to kind of script out, here are the plays that could be made based on what freedoms I'm given within this certain defense in this call. And there's some calls that you say, hey, man, you got to play it straight. You got to play it straight. You can't jump out of coverage. You can't go break on the ball. You have to make sure that we're protected because we don't have the freedom in this coverage to do it. There are other times where, hey, you know what? We can set a trap here. If you see it, you can go. You and the other safety can work it out. So if you're going, make sure he knows so he can cover you. Those things happen. Look, that's pro football. And I know, like, I don't want to be Johnny high school football coach that, hey, we got to play it just like it's written black or white. But in the pros, it's more than that. There are some nuances to what is done that allows guys to make plays. To me, Andre Cisco's best value is as a playmaker. And if he can earn the trust of his coaches and the rest of his teammates in the secondary, he should have an opportunity to make a ton of plays. But it comes through the preparation process. It comes through the way that they talk and discuss things in meetings. It comes through the extra time that he spends watching tape. And then it comes through putting it down in practice so that people can trust that you're going to do it in the game. So that not only works for Cisco, but it goes for Tyson Campbell and Devin Lloyd, because ultimately practice is everything. And the way that you practice ultimately dictates how you're going to perform. And so if these guys are able to, I would say, flourish in roles that to me appear better suited to their talents, the Jaguars defense is going to be really good. And it's going to be one of the ones that we talk about as a great defense. Because remember, everyone will knock it, but last year, early in the year, this team was a takeaway machine, a team that really turned the ball over, created plenty of opportunities for the offense to win games. And the things that matter in this league when it comes to playing great defense, it's really two of them: turnovers, red zone defense. If you take the ball away, you're going to win games. And if you don't give up touchdowns and force people to kick field goals as opposed to scoring 7, you're going to win a lot of games. These three guys can help the Jaguars win a lot of games because they can create turnovers, create chaos, and they certainly can help them shut the windows down in the red zone. So there you have it. 3 key players on defense that will ultimately determine where the Jaguars go from good to great. So that is the podcast for the day. Make sure you tune in. If you're enjoying the show, make sure you follow, rate, and review on your favorite podcast platform. Spread the word to your friends. Don't forget to follow Believe Network on all social channels and leave your questions on Believe's YouTube. Your feedback makes our community better. So tune in. We got this podcast. We got one coming up on Wednesday and another one on Friday after the schedule releases. Keep it locked on Believe in Jaguars. I'm Bucky Brooks. I will talk to you next time.